Hello and welcome. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran and this is Voice of the Global South, your weekly guide to everything that's happening in Latin America and the Caribbean, Africa, Asia and Oceania. All right then, let's get started. It is so small that you can't spot it on the map, but it wields a disproportionate influence on world affairs. I'm talking about Diego Garcia. This 30 square kilometer area of prime real estate belongs to Mauritius, but is controlled by the UK, occupied by the US, and eyed by China. And the great power contestation that comes with it is taking place right here, India's backyard. Now, Diego Garcia is an island in the Indian Ocean. It's the largest island in the Chagos archipelago. An archipelago is a group of islands. Diego Garcia is also an atoll. An atoll is an island made of coral, shaped like a ring with a lagoon in the middle, which makes it a perfect setting for a military base. And that is just what the US did. It leased Diego Garcia from the UK in the 1960s and set up a military base there. The lease will run until 2036. Now the question is, will the UK relinquish Chagos and give it back to its rightful owner, Mauritius? 2. Will the US vacate the base in Diego Garcia? 3. Will China take advantage of the situation? And 4. What will India do? Now, there are no easy answers to these rather tantalizing questions. But one thing is clear. Whatever happens between now and 2036 will have a lasting impact on the course of history. I will tell you how and why in just a bit. But first, let me give you a brief history of Chagos. Chagos is the last British colony in Africa. In 1965, the British declared that Chagos does not belong to Mauritius. And Chagos became what is called the British Indian Ocean Territory, by which name it is known till today. In 1966, the British leased Diego Garcia to the US for 50 years. The lease has been extended by 20 years until 2036. In 1968, Mauritius gained independence. But by then, the British, at the behest of the US, had evicted the Chagosians from Diego Garcia, as the locals are called. In fact, no local was allowed to remain on any of the islands that form a part of the Chagos archipelago. Most of them were either relocated to Mauritius or Seychelles. Others were taken to Britain. All right, now take a look at a timeline of events that related to the Chagos archipelago. Here's a brief history. On 22nd June 2017, the UNGA adopts resolution number 71/292, asking the International Court of Justice to intervene in the matter of Diego Garcia. The court concludes that Chagos was illegally separated from Mauritius. On February 2019, the court said the process of decolonization of Mauritius was not lawfully completed when that country acceded to independence. The court also said, and again I quote, the United Kingdom is under an obligation to bring to an end its administration of the Chagos archipelago as rapidly as possible. The court went on to say, and again I quote, that the UK's continued administration of the Chagos archipelago constitutes a wrongful act entailing the international responsibility of that state, unquote. And finally, it said, all member states must unite and must cooperate with the United Nations to complete the decolonization of Mauritius. Now, in 22nd of May 2019, UNG adopts resolution number 73/295. 116 countries voted for the motion, including India. 6 countries voted against. They were Australia, Hungary, Israel, the Maldives, the UK, and the US. 56 countries abstained. Now, India's top diplomat in the UN at the time, Syed Akbaruddin, said, India shares security concerns relating to the Indian Ocean and called for a mutually agreeable understanding as soon as possible. Moving on, in November 2019, the UK plainly refused to abide by the court's opinion. But 3 years later, in October 2022, the Prime Ministers of the UK and Mauritius meet in the US. And on 3rd November 2022, the UK says it has started negotiations with Mauritius. The UK Foreign Minister James Cleverly at the time says, and I quote, the UK and Mauritius have reiterated that any agreement between our two countries will ensure the continued effective operation of the joint UK-US military base on Diego Garcia, which plays a vital role in regional and global security. The minister also says, and again I quote, we recognize the US's and India's interests and will keep them informed of progress. Now, 3 rounds of talks take place in November 2022, January 2023, and February 2023. The UK Foreign Minister tells Parliament in March 2023 that the talks covered 4 main issues. Which are they? 1, ensuring continued operation of military base on Diego Garcia. Number 2, resettlement of former inhabitants of the Chagos archipelago. Number 3, strengthening cooperation on environmental and marine protection. And 4th, last but not the least, improving security and tackling illegal activities in the region. But sadly, the issue has not been resolved till date. If you're wondering why, what explains the delay, the answer lies in Diego Garcia's location, its geography. Now, the island is located south of the equator, 3,500 kilometers from Tanzania in the west, 4,000 kilometers from, there you go, that's Tanzania for you, 3,500 kilometers from Tanzania, 4,000 kilometers from Jakarta, Indonesia, that's another to the east of the island, 4,800 kilometers from Australia down south, the distance between Diego Garcia and Australia, and last but not the least, 1,800 kilometers from India, there on the map there in the north. Now, in fact, Diego Garcia is closer to India than Mauritius, which is 2,100 kilometers away from the Chagos archipelago. But first, let me give some more data for you. There are no land anywhere around Diego Garcia for thousands of kilometers in any direction. The US uses it to surveil sea lines of communication. It used Diego Garcia for its military operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. Now, it wants to use Diego Garcia to deter China from attacking Taiwan. The US has parked its most advanced fighter jets in Diego Garcia, which can hit targets in China from more than one direction. Now, Harold Wilson of the Labour Party was the Prime Minister of the UK when it leased Diego Garcia to the US. Now, today, another Labour leader, Keir Starmer, is the UK Prime Minister. Will Starmer do the honourable thing and return Chagos to Mauritius? The jury is out on that one. But if you take the Labour Party at face value, it's only a matter of time. It's a question of when, not if. Why do I say that? UK Foreign Minister David Lamy spoke on the issue in July last year when his party was in the opposition. Lamy said the UK consistently proclaims the importance of complying with international law to other nations, but does not walk the talk itself. He said, and I quote here, "For years, the government ignored the opinions of the ICJ, the International Tribunal of the Law of the Sea, and the UN General Assembly about the Chagos Islands. Only belatedly has the government sought what we have long called for, a new settlement that brings the UK into compliance with international law, redresses the historical injustice done to the Chagosians, maintains the marine protected environment around the islands, and meets strategic security concerns," unquote. Lamy went on to say, and again I quote, "A Labour government will consistently challenge clear breaches of international law," unquote. Now, Lamy visited India this week. It was his first official visit to India in his capacity as the UK Foreign Minister. He called on Prime Minister Modi and met National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. He also held talks with India's Foreign Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar. Neither side was willing to offer a comment on whether Chagos was discussed. Now, Lamy's visit to India came close on the heels of Jaishankar's visit to Mauritius. Jaishankar was in Mauritius on the 16th and 17th of July. It was the first visit by India's Foreign Minister to Mauritius in his current term. Now, Prime Minister Praveen Jagannath of Mauritius visited India in June to attend the inauguration of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's third term in office. Jaishankar voiced his support to Mauritius on the issue of the Chagos Islands, which Jagannath welcomed wholeheartedly.
Prime Minister, I would like to again assure you today that on the issue of Chagos, India will continue its consistent support to Mauritius in line with its principled stand on decolonization and support for sovereignty and territorial integrity of nations.
I had the opportunity to reiterate our deep gratitude for India's unflinching support to the long-standing struggle of Mauritius to complete our decolonization process so that we can effectively exercise our sovereignty over our entire territory, including the Chagos archipelago.
Now, the UK might still decide to return Chagos to Mauritius, but will the US agree to vacate the base in Diego Garcia? The US is reticent on the issue. Its foreign minister said in December last year that it is a bilateral matter for the UK and Mauritius to work out, but he added a caveat that the US recognizes UK's sovereignty over the Chagos archipelago.
On Diego Garcia, I can just say, as David said, look, this is a joint US-UK military facility that plays a vital role in the Indo-Pacific region. For us, it plays a vital role in global security. It enables our own support for regional stability, gives us an ability to respond rapidly to crises, and also to counter some of the most challenging threats that we face. We, as you know, recognize UK sovereignty over British Indian Ocean territory, but this is a bilateral matter for the UK and Mauritius to work out, and we support their engagement to resolve the differences.
Now, China's President Xi Jinping has told his military to be ready to invade Taiwan by 2027. And therefore, the US argues it's imperative that it continues to operate its military base in Diego Garcia. The US says China has little power projection capability in the Indian Ocean. In a major war, Chinese vessels and oil tankers would effectively be trapped in the Indian Ocean because there are no bases or facilities of its own that China could rely on. China has only one military base in Djibouti and no air cover from land or sea for naval deployments in the Indian Ocean. Clearly, Taiwan's fate is linked to the future of Diego Garcia. The clock is ticking. So, should strategic considerations prevail over international law? Will Mauritius allow the US to maintain a base if the UK relinquishes Chagos? Can Mauritius allay fears of Chinese activity in the Indian Ocean? And will a US withdrawal embolden China's designs on invading Taiwan? What do you think? Let us know. The question we are asking is this: should Mauritius extend the US lease on a military base in Diego Garcia? Yes or no? I repeat, should Mauritius extend the US lease on a military base in Diego Garcia? What do you think? Yes or no? You can post your replies on our social media handles at Facebook, X and Instagram. We'd love to hear from you.